Before you listen, if you enjoy the stories and want to hear more, then please consider subscribing. Most of you listening aren't subscribed, so please take this time to subscribe. Turn on notifications so you'll never miss a story and be the first to hear. You'll also be supporting me. Thank you. My friends and I were looking to get out of the city for a little weekend trip in the countryside. After searching Airbnb, I found this cozy cabin that looked perfect. It was located on a few acres of wooded land out near a lake, very quiet and secluded. The photos showed charming rustic decor, a fireplace, and big windows looking out into the wilderness. It was available for a great price too, at just $100 per night split between the 5 of us. We booked it right away, excited to relax and unwind in nature. The drive out there on Friday evening was beautiful, cruising along back roads as the sun set over the trees. Our no-frills cabin was tucked away down a long gravel driveway off the main road. When we pulled up, my friends and I all got giddy about how cool and remote it seemed, like we had escaped civilization completely and had the woods all to ourselves. We settled into the cozy cabin as the evening darkness enveloped us, spending the night drinking wine, playing cards, and enjoying the fresh country air. Around midnight, sufficiently tired and tipsy, we decided to turn in for the night. The 2 small bedrooms upstairs each contained a bunk bed, just enough space for all 5 of us if we squeezed in tight. I climbed up to the top bunk in one room as my friends filled in the other beds. Under the warmth of the patchwork quilt, I felt myself relaxing into the mattress. I took in the sounds of crickets and owls through the window as I drifted off into a peaceful sleep. A few hours later, I was jolted awake by the sudden loud ringing of the doorbell echoing through the cabin. My groggy, disoriented friends in the bunks around me also stirred awake, groaning and asking what that sound was. We were in the middle of the woods. Who could possibly be at our door at 3 a.m? As the chime rang out again, we whispered nervously to each other about who should go check. I reluctantly volunteered, slowly climbing down from my top bunk. I felt my heart start to race as I tiptoed barefoot across the cold wood floor downstairs toward the front door. Taking a deep breath, I hesitated before cracking open the door, the creaking hinges piercing the silence around me. I poked my head out into the darkness and scanned the front porch for any sign of someone, but there was nothing except pitch blackness and shadows between the trees. Confused, I slowly closed the door and turned to start heading back upstairs. But as my foot touched the first step, the doorbell suddenly rang out again. I whipped back around and hurriedly swung the front door completely open this time, stepping fully onto the porch to look wildly in all directions for any sign of a person playing a prank. But the only light came from the moon above, casting everything in an eerie glow. There wasn't a single soul in sight. No silhouettes, no footprints, nothing disturbed whatsoever. Just empty woods and ominous stillness. With my heart now racing faster, I swiftly closed and locked the front door before sprinting up the stairs 2 at a time. I frantically told my friends what had happened, that no one was there despite the rings. They were just as freaked out as me, huddling close on the couch wondering who or what could be messing with us out here in this isolated place. The idea of going back to sleep was long gone. Over the next hour, the doorbell continued sporadically ringing, sometimes with minutes between, sometimes with only seconds. Every single time one of us would rush to check, we'd find no one there. No footprints, no silhouettes, nothing disturbed whatsoever. Just eerie, empty darkness. We had no cell service this deep in the woods to call for help, and we couldn't just hop in the car and leave in the middle of the night. Our only choice was to wait it out together until sunrise when we could get the heck out of there. None of us slept another wink that night, jittery with fear about who or what might be lurking outside toying with us. When morning finally came, we wasted no time packing up the car and getting back on the road, flooring it down the gravel lane. As we pulled onto the smooth pavement of the main road, we all breathed a huge sigh of relief. The nightmarish cabin disappeared from view in the rearview mirror. No more doorbells haunting us. We decided to just drive all through the morning to get as far from the place as possible. Only once we were back in the safety of the city did we feel comfortable enough to book a hotel and finally rest. To this day, we still have no explanation for what happened. Our best guess is maybe some twisted prankster was watching and knew exactly when to dash away unseen after ringing the bell, but none of us wanted to return to find out the truth. After that weekend, I stick to hotels in busy cities for lodging. and I make sure anywhere I stay has reliable cell service in case of emergencies. Remote cabins tucked away in the wilderness now terrify me after that traumatic night, no matter how scenic and Instagram-worthy they may appear. You truly never know what darkness could be lurking right outside your door, waiting to torment innocent travelers passing through. I recently had to take a last-minute work trip to London to fill in for a coworker who got sick. Not wanting to spend a small fortune at a hotel for 5 nights, I booked an Airbnb room instead, which was a much cheaper alternative. The listing I selected had lots of positive reviews and was located right in the heart of the city, perfect for my needs. After a long red-eye flight and what felt like endless train rides dragging my suitcase around, I finally arrived at the apartment building. It was in an old Victorian-style building that had been moderately refurbished on the inside. The owner named Mark greeted me warmly and showed me up 3 flights of creaky stairs to my cozy room on the top level. It was certainly small and a bit Spartan, but clean and comfortable enough for one person. I was so exhausted from traveling that I didn't care about the lack of amenities. I just needed a place to crash at the end of the day during my stay. I thanked Mark, settled into the room, and collapsed immediately into a deep jet-lag-induced sleep. The next morning, I awoke feeling groggy, but ready to conquer the day ahead with my critical work meetings. As I went to grab some fresh clothes out of my suitcase for after showering, though, I noticed something that made my heart sink. The contents of my bag looked clearly out of order and rifled through. Certain items I specifically remembered packing right on top were now buried at the very bottom underneath other clothes and belongings. Panicked, I scoured the room looking for any other signs of an intruder or theft. My laptop and passport still sat untouched on the small desk, and nothing else seemed to be missing that I could identify. But my personal clothes and items were definitely disorganized and rummaged through in a way I knew I had not left them. Nausea washed over me at the thought of someone creeping into my room while I slept and going through my private things. I hurried downstairs to ask Mark if maybe a housekeeper or repair person had accessed my room for some reason without my knowledge. But he insisted no staff would ever enter a guest's room during a booking without explicit permission, and there was no reason any employee had been on my floor. He assured me their building had top-notch security systems in place. This only increased my unease. I headed out the door to focus on getting through my critical work meetings, but the unnerving, violated feeling clung to me all day. I just couldn't shake that paranoid sense that someone had been in my private space while I was unaware. I chalked it up to travel-induced exhaustion making me imagine things. Surely it was just jet lag causing me to misremember how I'd packed my bag right. That night, when I returned to the apartment after grabbing dinner, I wedged my large suitcase up against the inside of my door while it's locked, barricading it as best I could. If someone really was sneaking in somehow, I was determined to hear them break through this blockade as they entered. Feeling slightly better about my alert system, I changed clothes and crashed into bed, beyond ready for this stressful day to end. But when I groggily awoke the next morning, that all too familiar dreadful sinking realization set in immediately. My suitcase barricade had clearly been moved, and once again items in my bag were wildly disheveled and out of place from how I had meticulously packed them. It was the exact same violating unease as yesterday morning. I jumped out of bed, heart pounding, and frantically inspected the room. Again, nothing seemed stolen or even touched beyond my personal belongings being rummaged through. My electronics, passport, and valuables sat undisturbed right where I had left them. It was only my clothes and personal items that had been invaded, but with nothing taken. The door and windows showed no signs of being tampered with or forced open either. I immediately called Mark, the owner, in a near panic now, insisting someone was absolutely gaining access to my room at night. But he swore on his life that no staff, cleaners, or anyone would ever enter a guest room during a booking without explicit prior permission. He even reviewed the building's security camera footage from the stairwells and my floor's hall overnight, confirming my barricaded door had remained sealed shut the entire night with no one coming or going. I was at a total terrified loss now. If no other living person was entering the room, yet items kept getting clearly rummaged through, then what sinister forces were at play toying with me? Mark could sense my unraveled state as I frantically explained what transpired and begged him to move me to a different room, even offering to pay more. I didn't care about the cost, I just knew I couldn't spend another night alone in that place. The kind owner understood my freaked out mindset and found another guest who was checking out early to consolidate their room, freeing up a different spot for me. I moved all my stuff straight there after work, not caring if I seemed paranoid at this point. I just needed the peace of mind of knowing I was safely behind a barricaded door with others around me on the same floor. Finally, I could breathe and stop obsessively checking over my shoulder. I fell into the soundest sleep I'd had in days. In the light of day, my coworkers tried to rationally convince me I was likely just misremembering packing my bag while excessively jet-lagged in a new unfamiliar place. But deep down, I know what I experienced. Some sinister unseen presence was toying with me, staying one step ahead despite my barricaded attempts. I don't care if it sounds crazy, my gut knows something was horribly amiss in that room. And I will never again ignore those primal instincts when they sense danger, no matter how benign things appear on the surface. Material items can eventually be replaced, but peace of mind is priceless. My wife and I were desperately overdue for a relaxing vacation together, just the two of us. Browsing Airbnb for a perfect getaway spot, we came across a cozy cabin tucked away in the mountains that looked absolutely idyllic. It was remote but still close enough to some scenic hiking trails, quaint towns, and other mountain attractions to explore. The photos in the listing showed the charming cabin had warm, rustic decor inside, a stone wood-burning fireplace, and a breathtaking view of the surrounding canyon from the back deck. It seemed like the ideal peaceful escape from the stresses of our daily lives and jobs. We couldn't book it fast enough for a whole blissful week away. The drive up into the mountains was peaceful, taking increasingly windy roads up through evergreen forests until we arrived at the secluded cabin. Pulling up the gravel driveway, we were giddy with excitement, realizing it looked exactly as pictured, nestled among the soaring pines with the canyon vista spread out below. The owner, an elderly man named Donald, gave us a quick tour of the place and overviews of how things worked. He assured us to make ourselves completely at home and fully enjoy this little slice of paradise during our stay. After he left, we eagerly settled into the rustic space, claiming the cozy bedroom with a handmade quilt on the bed. The first couple days we had an idyllic time out there in nature, going on scenic hikes during the day, cozying up to the fireplace at night, grilling on the back deck at sunset overlooking the canyon views. It was exactly the peaceful week away we had hoped for. But by the third day, we had begun to grow a little restless being cooped up inside the cabin due to nonstop rain. We had already completed the puzzle on the coffee table and beaten each other multiple times in checkers. I was trying to brainstorm another indoor activity to pass the time when I suggested we rummage through some of the old board games and books that the owner kept on the shelves. My wife ended up finding a deck of cards and had sat down on the braided rug to play some solitaire. As she shuffled, she fumbled the deck and cards went flying across the wood floor in all directions. We both crawled around picking them up when I noticed one card had landed halfway under the TV console stand. Reaching back to grab it, a small basic black photo album tucked away in the back corner caught my eye. Curious what it might contain, I slid it out and slowly opened the cover. My heart instantly sank into my stomach. The album was filled with extremely graphic photographs of dead bodies in various stages of decay and mutilation. Men, women, even a few children, all lifeless and bloodied, contorted into unnatural poses. I felt instantly nauseous and slammed it closed, pushing it far away from me across the floor. Who would make and keep such a vile thing? My wife was utterly horrified when I explained what I had discovered tucked back there. We both panicked and agreed we had to get out of that cabin immediately. This went beyond creepy vacation souvenir. It felt evil. As we scrambled to hurriedly pack up all our belongings, I kept anxiously expecting the owner, Donald, to show up unexpectedly and catch us red-handed in his place. Our minds raced about who he really was and what other twisted secrets this outwardly charming cabin held. Not even bothering to neatly fold anything, we just threw all our clothes, toiletries, and leftovers haphazardly into our suitcases and bags. Lugging it all out to the car, we sped off down the winding gravel road away from that nightmarish place, kicking up plumes of dust in our wake. I don't think either of us breathed fully until we had put many miles between us and that cabin. We drove directly to the nearest large hotel many miles away just to feel safe being around other people again. But even surrounded by staff and families, we couldn't shake the bone-chilling terror of what we had discovered in that deceivingly quaint cabin. We cut our idyllic trip short and focused solely on getting back home as quickly as possible. In the months since, I've agonized endlessly over what to do about the hideous photo album. Should I have taken it straight to the police as evidence of something sinister? Would they even have believed me without concrete proof of the specific cabin where it was found? Whenever that unassuming owner Donald is secretly involved with, I want absolutely no part of it. But those grim images still haunt me. Now when traveling, I only stay in large chain hotels where there is staff and other guests around at all times. And I refuse to snoop through drawers or anything private. You truly never know what darkness lurks inside. As the old saying goes, ignorance is bliss, especially when sleeping in a stranger's home. I'd much rather remain oblivious than end up in one of those horrific photographs. This whole ordeal certainly taught me looks can be deceiving. Even the most charming remote getaway cabin can harbor unimaginable evils within. Going forward, just give me a sterile hotel with security cameras any day over the risks that accompany pastoral charm and privacy. Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.